Here we are in Argus, Indiana, 1991. This video is going to be a little bit different as we'll be looking at Indiana railroad locations. I'll be talking about what they were like then and how things have changed now in 2019 or disappeared altogether. Again, this is Argus, Indiana. This is the Norfolk Southern East-West main line through town. We're looking here at a bit of a yard that they had there and still do. This, of course, was a mainline track coming through northern Indiana, primarily a single track, but it did have passing sidings scattered about. This is looking to the west. Just beyond that signal is the ex-nickel plate Norfolk Southern line that crossed and ran between Michigan City, Indiana, and at one time all the way down to Indianapolis. At this time, that line was Norfolk Southern, operated from here up to Michigan City, but south of here to Rochester it was operated by the Indiana High Rail. We'll be looking at that closer here shortly. Again, this is the main track looking eastward. Norfolk Southern was pretty much getting up to capacity on this line at this time, since it was a single track line, and so they started utilizing the ex-Pennsylvania line farther up north that ran through Plymouth. I'm not exactly sure if they purchased that or if they was just leasing or something like that. Here we are still in Argus. This is just north of the main. This is the Michigan City line. Just north of the main here in Argus, there was a grain elevator there that generated some business. They had a siding for the elevator, and there was also a passing track. Taking a look at some freight cars here and the track work. The line through here now is operated by the Elkhart and Western in 2019. In fact, they operate all the way down to Rochester, and they operated as far north as a point just north of Walkerton. Between Michigan City and the Kingsbury Industrial Park near Dillon, the line is operated now by the South Shore. Between Dillon and just north of Walkerton, the line is out of service. Still pretty much in place, but out of service and dead. Here we are looking southward. Track in fairly good condition at this time. The line south of Rochester was for a time operated by the Central Railroad of Indianapolis. They had the line all the way down south through Peru and that area, but I'm not really sure if they ever actually operated it much south of Rochester. I'm not too sure about that. At any rate, now in 2019, south of Rochester, the line is entirely a trail. The nickel plate trail. Good look at couplers and air hoses. It was kind of cool just to kind of check track out, especially for model railroaders and stuff, kind of like that. I always like to just take the cameras with me, and whenever I had a chance I would just catch whatever I could. It's kind of neat to have some of this stuff now because it's just a documentation, especially for some of the things that are no longer around. Fortunately, this line here is still in use and looks to be pretty healthy. Now we are in Rochester. This is what is operated by the Elkhart and Western now. At this time it was Indiana High Rail. There is a couple grain elevators here. This is the one that is on the north-south line. There is another one on the east-west Erie Lackawanna remnant, which we will see shortly. Here we are looking south. Here we are looking at that grain elevator in more detail. Rochester some more. This is on the Erie Lackawanna east-west remnant. Indiana High Rail had their locomotive stationed here at this time. This Erie Lackawanna, which ran east-west across the state, of course, did not become a part of Conrail in 1976. For a short time it was operated by a couple other lines, the Erie Western, the Chicago and Indiana, that attempted to keep the line alive across the state, but they were unsuccessful. Then there was a Fulton County that operated this segment here from Rochester over to Monterey to a grain elevator that is there, but that operation ended. The Monterey elevator was served by the Tippecanoe, which operated west of there. We'll see more of that area in the next video. Right now this couple mile remnant still serves a grain elevator on this line, but I'm not exactly sure what the ownership here really is, if it is the E&W, Elkhart and Western, or if the grain elevator just owns a locomotive and has any ownership of this segment, or if the Fulton County is still an entity here. I'm not really sure, but at any rate this is still operated. And regardless, the E&W is the connection to the outside world for this elevator that exists on the Erie Lackawanna. There we see looking westward, and the grain elevator that is down there at the end of the line. A couple old crossing signals. You can see far in the distance the 31 overpass. That's pretty much where the line ends. Here's Indiana High Rail number 373, a GP30, I believe built in the early 60s. Not sure what happened to their equipment. They operated a bunch of scattered lines across Indiana back in the 80s and 90s, but went bankrupt in the late 90s. There's looking eastward on the Erie Lackawanna. There's the main street through Rochester. Old signals there. That was pretty interesting because they were in very decrepit condition. Pontiac and First Street by the depot. Only wish I'd gotten here earlier in the late 70s. I could have filmed Erie Lackawanna freights passing through here. Good look at those old roached signals. Lights missing, parts of the gates gone, in bad need of a paint job. One can only imagine the number of Erie Lackawanna freights that those signals saw pass. Looking at Google Map, a couple of those signals are still standing, but it looks like all the lights are gone and the gates are gone. One signal is completely gone. I believe it was a victim of a winter time auto crash. Clearly these things were not in the best of condition. There's a short truncated gate. Now we are in Plymouth, Indiana. Taking a look at the Plymouth Short Line, a kind of obscure operation that many don't even know existed. This was the lead to their line that came off of the Pennsylvania. At this time the Plymouth Short Line was already not operating. S-curve leading to the main line. What's left of the second track of the Pennsylvania that came across the state, and of course was single track during the Conrail period in the 80s. That line crossing now is the Norfolk Southern between Michigan City and Argus that we just looked at, now E&W. Back there, that is looking kind of southwestward. There is a half of a Y there that I believe Norfolk Southern put in to connect both of their operated lines at some point. I'm not sure if that is used now at all. The Pennsylvania, ex-Pennsylvania now, of course, is owned by CSX following the Conrail buyout, but it is operated by the CF&E, which is the Chicago, Fort Wayne, and Eastern. There's another look at the north-south line. There's the bridge, the once double-track Pennsylvania line. A pretty heavy rail. At this time, I'm not really sure who operated that, if it was still Conrail or if it was already Norfolk. And I'm not even sure what the Norfolk situation was, if they had purchased the line or if they were leasing the line, but I know they was using it for relief of the Argus line for their slower and heavier freights they would run through here. Old station, Amtrak stopped there, I believe in the 80s. Here's a look at the old locomotives the Plymouth Short Line used. One was a Plymouth unit, the other was a GE unit. Very sad to see them in this condition. I have pictures from the 80s when they was still operating, and these were nice looking usable units. But now with vandals and just plain neglect, it's not a pretty sight. Not sure what the disposition of these were, but I fear they went to the scrapper. The Plymouth Short Line just had about 1.8 miles of track here in Plymouth on the old Pennsylvania that ran between South Bend and Plymouth and Point South. Conrail didn't want any part of this when they came on the scene, so the short line was formed. It served, I believe, a couple of businesses here. We'll get a good look at one of them here shortly, and the track work, which is still in place. Now in 2019, this track is all gone. The area looks a lot different, as I believe there's actually a neighborhood with some houses that were built right on the track, very close to where these shots were taken. Vandals were really having their way with these units. Look at the track work, which was still in place in the early 90s, but obviously not having been used for some time. Looking north towards the water tower. Looking north again. The Plymouth Short Line did get wrote up in a few publications, but because it was so small, I think it was even overlooked by many rail fans. Here is the end of the trackage and one of the companies that they did serve back in the 80s. I believe this was a door company. I'm thinking Young Door possibly. I'm not sure what's here now. I think it's a different type of business. And that is looking south towards Plymouth. This is looking north. This is where the line ended, just across the street from the door company. That's what used to continue on to South Bend at one time. They had a team track here. I believe they were probably doing some offloading type of activity. So anyway, that's the end of this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Here we have a teaser of what is coming in the next video, which will be some more locations in Indiana. In fact, I believe La Paz, Monterey, the grain elevator, and the Hoosier Valley Railroad Museum in North Judson. So anyway, I hope you've seen some value in this. If you did, like, subscribe, and until next time, thanks for watching.